Okay, so the first example we're going to look at is to evaluate for the cosine of 135. Now we want this in exact values, and exact values means that we are going to be using radicals instead of just typing it in on our calculator. So we first want to find what they call the related, I call the reference angle. So we're just going to take 180 and subtract 135 from that. So we will find out that our reference angle is 45 degrees. So what I want to do is I want to figure out what quadrant is 135 in. It's in the second quadrant. It has a reference angle of 45 degrees. So we need to take 4 times whatever the value is of the cosine of 135. So we have a reference angle of 45 degrees, so I'm going to fold this finger in, 45 degrees in. And we are talking about cosine. Remember, cosine is the top values, so it has a value of radical 2 over 2. The last thing you want to think of is you want to think of all students take calculus, and cosine in this quadrant, cosine in the second quadrant is negative. So we're going to multiply 4 times negative radical 2 over 2. So the if you look at what that's going to have a value of, you could either reduce first. 2 goes into 4. This is 4 over 1. Keep that in mind. 2 goes into 4 2 times, so you end up with negative 2 radical 2 for an answer. Okay, so let's look at this next example. So we want to figure out where is negative 150 degrees. So the negative means that we're going to drop down 150 degrees, which means we are dealing with a 30-degree angle in the third quadrant. So we're going to have negative 2. Kind of my pattern I like to go through is think of cosine. So cosine, all students take calculus. Cosine will be negative in that quadrant. And the cosine of 30 degrees, once again, you could go back up here and look at your hand. So if you take the cosine of 30 degrees, you fold in your ring finger, and 30 degrees leaves 3 fingers up above, so that is radical 3 over 2. Now you could go ahead and multiply that, and if you multiply that, the 2's cancel. Negative times a negative is a positive, so you end up with radical 3 for an answer. Okay, this next example says 5/3 the cosine of 300 degrees. So we want to figure out which quadrant is 300 degrees in and what is the reference angle. So we're going to rotate around 300 degrees, which puts you into the fourth quadrant, and your reference angle is 60 degrees, and we are looking for the cosine. And if I look at it, all students take calculus, which means that it's going to be positive. So I'm going to take 5/3 times the oops, I don't need to put that. Let's start over. 5/3 times the cosine of 60 degrees. Well, that's going to be positive. And if I look at the cosine of 60 degrees, I'm going to fold in 60 degrees. And that's just going to leave me with 1 over 2. So that has a value of 1/2. And as you calculate that, your answer becomes 5/6. And there's your answer. So on your homework assignment, problem number 16 says 3 the cosine of 300 degrees. So we just found out 300 degrees puts you into the fourth quadrant with a 60-degree reference angle, and we are looking for cosine. So all students take calculus. Cosine is going to be positive. So we would have 3 times, that value will be positive, and the cosine of 60 degrees we just looked at, which is 1/2. So number 16 on your homework assignment, if you multiply those two together, has a value of 3/2. So we look at the next one, and we are going to have, it looks a little bit different, but the same concepts. You have the sine of 60 degrees. So 60 degrees, you want to fold in the 60-degree angle. Sine is your bottom set of numbers, so that's radical 3 over 2. So the sine of 60 degrees is radical 3 over 2, plus we have radical 3 over 2 times the sine of 30 degrees. So the sine of 30 degrees, if you fold in 30 degrees, sine is your bottom value, which is 1 over 2. So the sine of 30 degrees is 1/2. So if you calculate, you're going to have radical 3 over 2 plus radical 3 over 4. And if you get the common denominator of 4, you're going to multiply the first fraction times 2. So you get 2 radical 3 plus radical 3 is 3 radical 3 over 4. So there's your answer to number 17. Okay, I want to try to fit this last problem in. This is number 18 on your homework assignment, and they say let f of x be equal to -2 the cosine of x. Find f of -300. So we have -2 the cosine, and the x value is -300. So once again, we want to know what quadrant is that going to be in. If you go -300 degrees, that's going to put you in the first quadrant with the 60-degree reference angle. And we've talked before what the cosine of 60 degrees is. So fold in 60 degrees, cosine is the set of top fingers. So that has a value of 1/2. So you have -2. All are positive in the first quadrant, so it's positive. And then the cosine of 60 degrees is 1/2. So if you calculate it, you're going to end up with an overall value of -1. So there's the new material. Sorry it took me a while to post it. If you have any other questions, I will be in a Zoom meeting tomorrow. And if that doesn't give you a chance to look at the homework assignment, since it's taken me a while to post this, then feel free to go ahead and ask me to create a Zoom meeting for Thursday. And we can set up a Zoom meeting on Thursday. I have some other available times, so all you need to do is just communicate with me that you need a meeting on Thursday instead of Wednesday, and I can sure create that on Thursday.